All right, I've got to ask. Have you ever met someone who just doesn't know when to leave? I'm talking about people who cannot read the room, the people who call at odd hours, or the people who linger after dinner. Oh, that really frosts my cookies when I tell you that's one of the most annoying things. Like, know when to leave. Hey, I'm Nina Chantele, and this is Unmuted. I was always raised to not overstay my welcome, you know? Those people who just stop by unannounced, that is one of the most irritating things, one of my biggest pet peeves. People who stop by unannounced and then got the nerve to just stay. You ever been annoyed by that? And can you tell that obviously I have? Yes, I have. Until I realized that sometimes those people aren't trying to bother us. Sometimes they're just trying to hold on. There's a story behind this. And honestly, I just never was raised to be a person who lingers around. Like, my mom was good about that. She always let us know when, all right, you don't want to overstay your welcome. Even like when we were kids and we would ask our parents growing up, like, can we go to this party or can we, do this slumber party at our friend's house? And they wouldn't want us to stay through afternoon hours. They'd be like, no, you don't want to overstay your welcome. And now I realize it's because my parents, they didn't want that experience as if they were the ones hosting it. They don't want people lingering all day. And now as an adult, I get that. You ever have people that just don't know when to leave? Okay. Now that you know what I'm talking about, I'd like to share with you two stories about two separate people, both still showing up for the people they loved, even after they were gone. And I'll explain. I want to start with Doug, all right? Doug comes to mind till this day. In fact, I just saw my mom last weekend and he came up. And it always seems that Doug's name comes up when we're comparing something that we've seen that might be a guest at dinner that doesn't know when to leave on a movie, an annoying character, and we're like, oh, that's Doug. And then I felt bad because I'm like, why am I talking about this poor man till this day? All right, Sally was my mom's best friend growing up. And Sally was married to Doug. They had 3 children. And those children were not around the same age group as my sister and I. So it wasn't like, oh, yay, they're coming over, let's play. No, these kids were loud and a little obnoxious, okay? So Sally was great. She was married to Doug, who, by the way, he's lovely. Doug is a quiet, gentle man. Now I realize that I really don't know how old he was. You know how when we're younger, you never know what the 30s and 40s actually look like? Because back then when we were kids, people in their 30s and 40s, if you think about it, even on TV, didn't look like what people in their 30s and 40s look like now. Not to get off subject, but did you know that the Golden Girls, like the epic series, The Golden Girls, those women were in their 40s? Did you know that Alice from the Brady Bunch was supposed to be in her 40s? Okay, so clearly people in their 30s and 40s now definitely don't look like the ones that they used to look like on TV. So I'm going to guess here and say that Doug was probably in his maybe mid to late 30s. I mean, the latest he could have been was early 40s, all right? Doug was a tall white man and just sweet in an old school way. The kind who never had to say, I love you out loud, but you just knew. But they had this great relationship, or so it seemed, because they were always together and they would always come over because my mom and her best friend always wanted to hang out. But later in life got complicated. Sally was diagnosed with MS. And somewhere in that journey of all that she was going through, can you believe that she actually fell in love with someone else? She left Doug. And she started seeing this limo driver. And I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing. It's just that I just remember overhearing my mom's conversations. They would always talk about the limo driver. And I guess they just never wanted to say his name. I don't know. But Sally and that limo driver ended up moving in together. Never met him, by the way. But this began a whole new chapter. And Doug never really left. Even as Sally was dating somebody else and Sally's relationship with that limo driver was serious and they were living together, Doug did not care. He kept calling. He kept checking in. Like, did she or the kids need anything? And wouldn't say it like he was trying to impose or trying to win her back. He was genuine about it. Like, he wanted to make sure, like, hey, I know that you're living with somebody else and you're in this whole other relationship, but I still want to be there for you. Like, I love you so much kind of thing. I don't know. Could you do that? Like, if you were in a serious relationship with someone and still not divorced and this is all happening and you're devastated that your wife that you love so much has MS, but she's in love with somebody else and somebody else is being there for her. I mean, could you do that? So Doug would call. Do they need anything? Did they have groceries? Should he stop by? Even though his heart was clearly broken, he kept showing up. And not just for her, for us too, like my family. Doug would show up at our house constantly, y'all, like constantly, and especially around dinner. Because my mom, she can throw down in the kitchen. And it's like he knew when my mother would get home. It's like he would do the math. The time that it would take my mother to get off work and drive home and start dinner. That man knew when to stop by, okay? He never texted. But then again, we didn't really have cell phones at that time. But he couldn't pick up a landline and call. He couldn't pick up a payphone and call. There was always just a knock at the door or ding dong. And me and my sister would look at each other like, oh, I know it's Doug. And we would roll our eyes. Just like, oh God, here he is again. And he'd sit down. He'd eat. He'd talk. He'd eat extra tortillas. The man never knew when to leave. And we'd be tired. Because my mom, she worked hard. Like my sister and I would come home after school and after school activities. And, my mom would come home after work, a long day of work and stress from that and not even enough rest from the night before. And she knew she had to hurry up in the kitchen and, get our dinner ready. So now my mom just ate. When you eat good, you're like, oh, I am like ready to unwind. I want to hurry up and get these dishes done. Help my kids make the lunch. They need to get ready for school. But Doug would not get it. He would still be talking. And even when my mom would get up to excuse herself from the table and say the things that she's about to do out loud to get ready for the next day, he would not get up. Oh my gosh, as a kid, it used to drive me insane. And even right now when I'm telling you the story, it still irritates me because that's how bad it used to irritate me. But my mom, she would always say, don't be mean, Mika. Just let him be. And then one day, Sally passed away. The MS took her. And Doug, he never moved on. Till this day, Doug has never dated anyone else. He still talks about Sally like she's just out of town. I mean, he still stops by my mom's house. She doesn't live in that house that we grew up in, but yes, he knows where she lives, and yes, he does the same thing. The only ding dong is that Ring camera that gives my mom an alert ahead of time so she could see that Doug is definitely standing outside the door. He still shows up around dinner, hoping for some of my mother's delicious Mexican cooking and maybe just one more conversation. Now that I'm grown, I finally get it. He wasn't overstaying his welcome, even though we thought so. He didn't think so. He was still trying to feel her. He was still trying to feel Sally, still showing up where her energy lived. All right, now I want to get to the second person that I'm thinking about. Let's flash forward to just a few weeks ago. So I'm at the airport. I'm just waiting for a shuttle to get back to my car here at LAX, right? I'm vibing in my own world. And then this man, super handsome, super tan, he's buff, beautiful, beautiful blue eyes, probably in his early 50s, super polite, soft-spoken, with a very interesting accent, by the way, comes over and says, hey, great to see you again, even though I'm not giving you that awesome accent that the man has. Turns out, this was the handsome man from my flight I was on earlier. So we shared a few smiles, nothing major. But then I looked down at his luggage, and you know me. Honestly, we'll say anything to anyone if I want to start a conversation. So I just looked down and I spit it out. I saw his 3 massive suitcases and I'm like, okay, I mean, are you moving in or what? And he kind of laughed. And I'm like, I mean, I thought you might just be visiting because earlier on the aircraft, I had asked him on the flight, where's that accent from? And he said it was from Louisiana. And then he I thought was just on vacation, right? So that's why I said, are you moving in or what? And he laughed and said, no, I'm visiting my daughter in Santa Monica. This is what he was telling me when I saw the baggage. And we just kept talking, just a little small talk, waiting for our shuttles, a little easy energy. And then he hit me with it out of nowhere. He said, well, we just lost her mom, my wife, a few months ago. And when I tell you again, just like with Doug, I could feel that kind of grief that doesn't scream. It just sits quietly on your shoulder. And I'm not going to lie to you. I really didn't feel like that was what was going to come out of his mouth. It saddened me immediately. And I just looked at him and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And he started telling me about how everything changed after she died just a few months ago. That he's been visiting his kids more. There's one in college in Alabama and one lives in Italy. The one in Italy is in fashion design. And now this daughter, the stepdaughter, has invited him to come stay in Santa Monica. He said, at this age, I just want to see the legacy I've left. I want to be with them. I want to feel something. I want to feel something. And then he told me how in his wife's last days, she became deeply spiritual. He said that she just started writing notes every day. And I'm getting choked up because I'm remembering that her notes, when he shared with me what they said, don't be sad when I'm gone. I had a good life. And she'd list the things that she was grateful for. Today I smiled because ... And even as her body gave out, her spirit stayed strong. He wanted her to keep fighting. He was telling me, he's like, I wanted her to do all these clinical trials and just take those meds to try. He wanted her to keep fighting, but she was already at peace. And then he told me something I'll never forget. He said when it came time to bury her, he asked the funeral director for the cheapest coffin that they had. And it wasn't out of disrespect. Some of you might have your jaw dropped right now. Like, why would you say that? But this is because she wanted it that way. She had become so close in her religion. He said that she wasn't like this, but she was just, with her theology, was so strong with it that she wanted a white sheet so that she could just be ashes to ashes and dust to dust. She said that she wanted to be close to the earth, back to where she came from. And I just stood there. And I wanted to fight back the tears. I felt them getting swollen in my eyes, that burning feeling when those tears are genuine and your eyes just kind of start burning. And I was thinking, wow, this man loved her so much. He loved her so much and he let her go the way that she wanted. He wanted something beautiful for her, this service that was just, he knew that she was worth, but he wanted to respect her wishes. He even told me, he's like, I almost bought a farm just so that I could bury her where something could grow from her to make it extra special for her so I wouldn't feel like it was a cheap funeral. When I tell you that 2 shuttles had gone by for me and I saw one go by for him, we decided to do that because we were so deep in conversation. I couldn't leave this man when he was sharing this story with me. And I noticed that one of our shuttles was coming and, we hugged each other. Right before he left, I hugged him hard and I said, I'm so sorry about what you've been through. And I really, really will cherish this conversation that you've had with me. And he whispered in my ear as he was hugging me tight and said, I keep meeting people lately that I feel like I'm supposed to meet. And I was supposed to meet you. Oh, when I tell you that I held it together until I got on that shuttle and I felt like I was Forrest Gump. When he's sitting on that bench and he's telling all these stories, waiting for the bus, and some of them he just lets go by because he's waiting. You just can't escape a really deep conversation, a person that you were supposed to meet. That's what I felt. And between Doug and that handsome man at the airport, I started to understand something I'd missed for years. Some people keep showing up, not because they don't know how to leave, it's because they never stopped loving. And they sit too long, and they talk too much, and they drop by uninvited. And yeah, maybe they're annoying sometimes. Yes, they are. But maybe they're also the ones who are grieving the hardest. Maybe they're the ones who still feel it all. And they just don't know where else to go with that love or the pain. So I want you to write this down. Maybe you're going through an experience like this, whatever, but you'll relate. Number one is some people stay because they don't know how to say goodbye. The second thing I want you to write down is grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like dinner conversations that never end. And number three, the people who overstay might be the ones who've been left behind. And number four, just don't be so quick to shut the door. You never know who still needs a place to land. So yeah, Doug is still showing up at my mother's house. And that man at the airport, he'll probably never forget that shuttle moment either, because I know I won't. And I'm learning to pause before I roll my eyes, to listen before I label someone as annoying. Because maybe the ones who stay too long are really just trying to stay connected to what they lost. And if we're lucky, we'll all have someone who shows up like that for us in our lifetime. Remember, it's because silence never told the full story. This is Unmuted with Nina Chantele.